For 12 a.m. October 26, 1944, near Schleiden in the Eifel forest of western Germany, one man crawled alone through frost-hardened mud. His uniform was torn, his left hand bandaged with a strip from his own shirt bled through the fabric. He carried no backpack, no helmet, only a stolen MP40. And a name they had mocked, Corporal Joseph Kieffer, Jewish, American, fluent in German, captured, humiliated, forgotten. Now he was 5 miles behind enemy lines, and before the week ended 12 Nazis would die. The first had once spat in his face, "If only your people fought as well as they whined." That man would be dead within 48 hours, along with 11 others, some by blade, some by fire, all of them from the same patrol division that had called him a coward. No one was coming to save him, but he didn't need saving. He had memorized their schedules, their routes, their habits, and he was already in position. They thought he was weak, not because of his wounds, because he spoke their language better than some of them did. Joseph Kieffer was captured near Monte Battaglia, then transferred to a transit POW camp in the Eifel. By then, the Germans had begun dividing prisoners into categories: threat, non-threat, other. Kieffer was other, fluent in German, Jewish by birth, too dangerous to release, too odd to interrogate seriously. At roll call, a guard pointed at him. Ein Hund mit Amerikanischer Uniform. A Jewish dog in American skin. The other guards laughed. He didn't. He logged the guard's name Otto Schaff. At interrogation, the officer Karl Bremer took a different approach. Calm, surgical. He saw Kieffer's fluency as an opportunity, then a liability, then an insult. "You understand our culture," Bremer said. "You just lack the strength to earn it." Later, he'd mutter, "If only your people fought as well as they whined." The quote stayed with Kieffer. It didn't break him. It sorted the world. There were those who mocked, and those who remembered. In camp, Kieffer was watched. He wasn't tortured. He was dismissed. The other Americans thought he was strange. He rarely spoke, never shared rations, slept light, ate slow, memorized things without writing. Some thought he was losing it. He was cataloging. The camp had 2 fences, 6 guard towers, 1 outer patrol rotation every 4.5 hours. The dogs were rotated every 3rd shift by scent. The guard who joked the most always forgot to relock the supplied or after deliveries. At night, Kieffer would sit under the eaves, not praying, listening. The SS were preparing for a purge. Nearby resistance cells had killed a courier. Now the commandants were blaming POWs. 2 men had already been shot, one for spitting during inspection, the other for trying to dig under the latrine wall. Kieffer didn't panic. He traced back every sound, every smell, how often they changed boots, which boots creaked, how many steps from gate to fire barrel. Every cigarette lit, every match struck, filed into mental drawers. Because what they mocked wasn't just language, it was pattern recognition. It was patience. They thought he was passive. But every insult made the math simpler. They mocked his silence. He was writing their eulogy. Wartime systems reward conformity until reality punishes it. Kieffer didn't fit the mold. He was quiet when others shouted. He observed when others reacted. He survived when others followed procedure. The mockery wasn't just personal, it was systemic. They underestimated him because they couldn't categorize him. And in that blind spot, he found space to prepare. It wasn't just a failure of empathy. It was a failure of imagination. The night was colder than any before. He had memorized the shift changes, but the dogs were new, fresh. He would need to move before the scent rotation. He counted silently 47 seconds from the tower light to the next beam. That was his window. Hours earlier, a guard named Bremer had stumbled in drunk and let slip what Kieffer had feared. The SS purge would begin. At dawn, local resistance houses were to be cleared. POWs would be re-evaluated. It was code for bullets. Kieffer limped to the corner of the hut, unwrapped the bloodied strip around his hand. He poured the last of the stolen iodine into the cut. No sound, just teeth clenching. Then he readied the cloth twice, tighter. He slid a small kitchen blade into his boot, wrapped in burlap, 2 matches and a wire scrap tucked in his waistband. He walked the perimeter once more, slowly, each step rehearsed. The gap was behind the cookhouse, where morning deliveries had widened the fence line. 2 crates blocked the view from Tower 3. If the timing was right, the light would sweep left. And by the time it returned, he'd be gone. At 3:44, he stood by the rain barrel. No guards. 1 dog barked in the far corner. He waited. 3:47. He moved. Boots didn't hit soil. He landed on moss, rolled once, crawled forward. 12 steps, 1 scratch, no bark. Then silence. Behind him, the camp slept. Ahead, 12 miles of Eiffel forest, and somewhere in that forest 12 men who once laughed. He moved at night, slept during wind. Rain was cover, pain was rhythm. By noon on day 1, he had crossed 2 valleys and avoided 1 patrol. His leg throbbed, the wound reopened, but he remembered something from the camp. A supply truck always stopped at a small farm east of. It was part of a ration run for scattered SS posts. Kieffer had seen the logbook, had traced the route. He waited in a haystack across the road. At 1317, the truck arrived. 1 man, no uniform jacket, a civilian driver, humming Wagner. Kieffer crawled close, slow, deliberate. The man got out to relieve himself by the barn wall. 12 seconds, that was all. Kieffer slit his throat from behind. No sound. He dragged the body into the pig pen, took his coat, burned the manifest, then left, walking east with a slight limp and a stolen flask. First blood. That night it rained hard. He found shelter in a barn near Dryburn. But dogs came. Not from outside, from beneath. He had crawled into a hayloft stacked above a kennel. The barking started low, then rose. Footsteps. A boy's voice. W. Arist da. Kieffer froze. The beam of a lantern swung upward. The boy climbed 3 rungs of the ladder. Kieffer made his voice flat, stern. SS. Schmidt, inspection route 9. Move along. The boy dropped the lantern. Sorry, sir. He ran. The dogs barked louder. Kieffer held still until dawn. Then, soaked and shivering, he opened the loft door and slipped out. By 6:10 he reached a village safe house. But it was empty. Ransacked. He found 2 maps and a rusted MP40 left behind. Whoever had fled did so fast. He took both. The next 2 hours he moved deeper into the forest. At a fork near Oberhof, he planted the first false trail bootprints heading west, torn cloth on a branch, half-buried biscuit tin under pine needles. Then he circled east. At 10:43 he saw the first SS patrol. 3 men, laughing, relaxed. He stayed hidden, marked there. A route, watched them pass. They would die tomorrow. Tonight he would plan, and now he had their weapon. By the morning of day 2, Joseph Kieffer had covered nearly 19 kilometers on foot. His left boot was soaked in blood. The wound had split again. He walked slower now, favoring the right side. Every step left a question behind him. Had he made a sound? Left a print? Was he being watched? The rain stopped by noon. That made things worse. He drank from a trough behind an abandoned stable near Herhun. Then he heard voices, 2 men, cursing in German. Not SS, civilian collaborators, armed. They were looking for food. One of them was Otto Schaff. Kieffer froze. Schaff, the guard who had called him a Jewish dog, the one who laughed when a POW was shot during roll call. Now he was 2 meters away, hands full of canned meat. Kieffer didn't hesitate. He stepped from the shadows, fired once. Then again, MP40, short burst. Schaff died before he turned. The second man reached for his pistol. Kieffer kicked it aside, grabbed his collar, and drove him into the barn wall. You mocked the wrong man, he whispered. Then he pulled the trigger. 2 more dead. By nightfall, the SS had found the bodies. The patrol reports changed. Now they mentioned a fluent speaker, possible impersonator, armed escapee. The manhunt widened. Dogs, checkpoints, double shifts. Kieffer circled northeast. Slept only when the birds did. He started calculating not how to survive, but how many he could take with him. The next day, he reached the edge of Wolfgarten, a hunting town with old stone paths and a flooded ravine. There, he saw them for men in SS uniforms, laughing, resting, no helmets. One was cleaning his boots. Kieffer recognized 2 of them. Interrogation assistants. They had mocked his accent, the way he hesitated on compound verbs. Not quite Aryan, they'd said. He smiled. He waited until dusk, then walked upstream, soaked cloth in fuel from an abandoned cart, tied it to a matchstick grenade. He laid bootprints down the trail, just enough. Then circled around and climbed the tree line above the ravine. At 1822, one of them followed the prints. The others followed him. The grenade exploded, fell into the water. The third staggered back, rifle raised. Kieffer fired twice. 1 hit, 1 miss. He left the 4th to drown. That night, he sat in a tool shed behind a closed church, removed his boot, poured schnapps onto the wound, bit down on a broken rosary. He didn't cry. He recited names: Bremer, Schaff, Myrtle, Vogel. 4 down, 8 to go. The SS changed tactics. They knew he was real now. Reports from Schleiden described a ghost with a machine gun. Field HQ labeled him a rogue saboteur, fluent and fanatical. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was a variable, and variables had to be eliminated. In industrial war, the individual is either protected or consumed. Kieffer had neither shield nor rank, but his presence forced the system to react, burn fuel, deploy men, question protocols. It took one wounded man to shift an entire patrol strategy, not because he was powerful, but because he was unpredictable. That's what systems fear most. The outlier, the anomaly, the one they didn't model for. The storm broke at dawn. Rain came sideways. Hard, Kieffer used it, moved through ditches, let the thunder cover his steps. He had 5 names left, and one idea. The map he took from the ransacked safehouse showed an old munitions path decommissioned, according to the SS. But Kieffer noticed something. One note marked 12 with a red underline. Not an ammunition cache, a listening post. He needed to pull them in. He doubled back toward the ravine, found the abandoned cart again, and left a new clue: a ration box with fresh fingerprints, a scorched page from the SS handbook, and a cloth soaked in blood. Then he moved. 10 kilometers east, near a collapsed railway tunnel, he broke into a chapel shed. Inside, tools, wire, a hammer, and what he needed most: sound. He constructed the trap in silence, wire across doorframes, a makeshift weight trigger from roofing tile, echo amplification from steel scraps hung from rope. It wouldn't kill, it would scare. At 21:14, he lit a flare and left it on a path near the decoy trail. By 22 o'clock, they took the bait: 5 men, dogs, 1 officer with a field radio. They followed the signs into the ravine, toward the chapel. Kieffer was already inside. He waited. The door opened. 1 man entered, heard the echo chain rattle, froze. Kieffer dropped the hammer. The noise echoed, sounded like 10 men running. The patrol panicked. 1 fired into the dark. Another slipped on the wet stones. A third screamed something about mines. Kieffer stepped forward, fired once. Then again, the MP40 clicked. Empty. 3 down. The officer ran. Kieffer threw a rock at the dog. It yelped, confused, fled. He grabbed the map off the officer's corpse, marked in pencil: Op 9 purge ready November 1. He burned it, then moved south. At 2:18, he reached an old boathouse on the Ruhr. A new patrol rested there. 6 men inside. He crept to the oil drum near the rear, lit 1 match, then another. 1 breath. He fired into the barrel. It exploded. Flames caught the roof. Screams inside. 1 man burst through the front, covered in smoke. Kieffer tripped him, drove a nail through his shoulder. Tried to run. 1 slipped on frost. The other collapsed near the embankment. By 2:41, it was done. 9 dead in 6 hours. No witnesses. He left a torn SS armband nailed to the doorway. That was the message: you hunted the wrong man. The firelight faded behind him. Smoke drifted into the hills. He didn't watch it burn. By 3 o'clock, Kieffer had crossed into the Ruttle Ridge. His breath came in bursts. The MP40 was down to 9 rounds. The pain in his leg blurred his vision. He needed shelter. But the map he stole before he burned it had shown something else, something worse. A schedule, not just of troop movements, of purges. 1 resistance hideout, Op 9, listed for sweep, November 1st. That was 4 days away. He didn't know their names, but he knew what would happen. He turned east. For 12 hours he moved without pause, ate nothing, slept in a drainage culvert, dreamt of boots, woke to thunder. On day 4 he reached the village of. Posed as an SS courier. 1 sentence delivered clean. Commando befell. Sector West. They waved him through. He left the main road, took the logging trails, started hunting the last squad. It wasn't hard. They used the same call signs, same resting points, same habits. The system that made them powerful also made them predictable. He found them at dusk. 6 men, camped in a half-collapsed barn. No guard, just 1 man whistling by the gate. Kieffer watched, then disappeared into the woods. At 23:19, he returned. This time, no rifle, just silence. He took their water barrel, poured fuel inside, sealed it, then whistled. The man by the gate turned. Too late. Kieffer struck once, blade to throat. He dragged the body out of sight. Then the others heard it. A match. They rushed the fire. The barrel ignited. Fire leapt to the roof. 1 man screamed. Another ran into Kieffer's path. He struck with the butt of the MP40. Again. 1 shot rang out, wild. He dropped to the floor, crawled, slid under a beam. Another man came down the stairs. Kieffer pulled him by the ankle, drove the blade into his back. By 23:38, 3 were dead, 2 ran. He followed, into the trees. Wind howled, branches broke. He slipped once, fell hard, dirt in his mouth, got up. At 23:51, he reached the clearing. They stood with rifles raised. "You're not getting out." He said nothing, raised his hands. One man stepped closer. Kieffer threw the empty pistol. It hit his face. In that second, he lunged forward, knocked the second one off balance, grabbed the rifle from the first, turned, fired. One shot, one body fell. The other tried to crawl away. He let him. At 0:04, it was over. He walked until dawn. The resistance hideout was near Kalterherberg. He arrived barefoot, covered in ash, holding 12 tags and a blood-stained drag. He knocked once, then collapsed. The door creaked open. Inside, a half-lit cellar, a wooden table, a kerosene lamp. 2 men stood. One reached for a weapon. Then an old woman stepped forward. Her eyes scanned the blood, the burns, the bandage. Then she looked at his face. "You're the silent one," she said. Kieffer didn't answer. He handed her the rag. 12 tags fell onto the table. Bent, burnt. One still had blood on it. No names spoken. No applause. Just silence. They fed him broth, washed his hands, dressed the leg. Wound. He didn't speak for hours. By sunrise, a resistance officer arrived from Monschau, looked at the tags, looked at Kieffer. "You did what a platoon couldn't," he said. Kieffer said nothing. He handed over the maps, the notes, the coordinates he had memorized. The officer nodded, folded the papers into a leather pouch. "Anything else?" Kieffer shook his head. Later, they offered him a medal, said they'd pass his name to Allied command. He declined. No record, no paperwork, just one request. "Mark the house," he said, "so they know not to search it." He drew a symbol, 3 lines, 1 circle. That night, he limped to the doorway, left behind the MP40, the knife, and one last tag, the one belonging to Karl Bremer. Then he walked into the trees and vanished from the war. The house he saved was never raided. The purge never reached Kalterherberg. Kieffer's intel matched the SS route with such precision that the resistance ambushed 3 patrols in 10 days. Not one civilian was lost in that sector during the early November sweeps. His maps were passed to Allied command via courier. One of the notations, Op 9, November 1, matched intercepted chatter days later. The intelligence was marked origin, unknown. It saved lives. But his name didn't travel with the message. The U.S. Army file labeled it, Rogus KP, Eifel region. Outcome, unconfirmed. A single line summarized his actions. May have neutralized multiple hostiles, likely mentally unstable. There was no medal, no follow-up, no search. In 1952, his record was reviewed during a clearance audit. Jewish descent noted. German fluency flagged as cultural proximity risk. File closed. He had broken their logic. Saved dozens, eliminated 12 trained killers, and history filed him away as an anomaly. One photo survives from the resistance archive. A young man, gaunt, eyes sunken, holding a cloth-wrapped bundle. The caption reads, "Silent One, delivered 12 tags." He left no memoir, no grave, only traces. And the war moved on. History remembers outcomes. Archives remember complexity. Kieffer's silence didn't fit the mold of heroism. His skills weren't rewarded because they were inconvenient reminders that intelligence, patience, and otherness can win wars just as much as firepower. But systems forget what they can't explain. His story wasn't erased out of malice. It was buried under convention. Comment your family story from World War II. We read them all. Today, in a museum basement in Monschau, there's a wooden box. Inside, 12 rusted German dog tags. One is melted, one bent into a hook. Another still carries a bloodstain. The curator doesn't know who brought them, only that they arrived one night, wrapped in a torn piece of US Army cloth. No name, no note, just a symbol scratched into the lid, 3 lines, 1 circle, a code no one could trace. But to those who know the region, it means something that in late October 1944, one Jewish soldier, fluent, wounded, mocked, crossed the Eifel forest alone, and the very language they ridiculed became their undoing. He didn't win the war. But he changed it, silently, precisely, permanently, because what systems dismiss, the war remembers. This story shows how the very traits that authoritarian systems mock, intelligence, difference, language, are often the ones that break them. Subscribe for more Untold We stories. Comment your city and the name of someone in your family who served. We read everyone.